Welcome everyone to another segment of Bird Coverage. I'm your host Curtis.
And I'm Joel.
And we're here breaking down your Week 9 fantasy players for tight ends. And I know we both got a few. Joel, you want to roll this one out?
Yeah, I'll lead off. I'm going to go with my favorite player on my favorite team. That is Zach Ertz. Philadelphia Eagles. They are playing their division rivals, the hated Dallas Cowboys. So yes, he's yet to score a touchdown this season, but he's still averaging over 6 targets a game. Dallas gave up 113 yards and a touchdown to the tight ends of Seattle last week. That's Wilson and Jimmy Graham. Zach Ertz went 5 for 63 last week. All 5 catches resulted in first downs, which is a huge little tidbit. He's only got 24 catches this season, which does put him second on the team. But 14 of those catches have come in the last 3 weeks. So he's finally getting comfort level with Sam Bradford. Zach Ertz was hurt with sports hernia in the beginning of the season. And then so he really had no reason to develop that rapport with his new quarterback. Price is $5,000 on FanDuel, $3,200 on DraftKings, lower end tight ends, and I guarantee a touchdown from Zach Ertz this week.
That's a big guarantee from a guy that doesn't have any touchdowns
I make
this
a
year.
lot of guarantees, and I've not failed on one yet.
Hard for me to swing on a player and on a team where they spread the ball around so much, and especially to like lower caliber players. I mean, Miles Austin still gets receptions.
Zach Ertz is second on the team in catches.
Oh, okay, but no touchdowns, and as you said, his usage has been going up. But I don't think that necessarily means that it's good for the Eagles. I don't know if it's good for daily fantasy plays. It's just
for the price.
What's the ceiling here? Like he finally gets a touchdown. Is
his
that what you're
ceiling? I think we've seen his ceiling last season. Last game of the season, what did he have? He had 10 catches for 150 yards and a touchdown. Did he not?
Yeah, Mark Sanchez was a really good quarterback.
But it doesn't matter. That he's established his ceiling. It doesn't matter, especially if Mark Sanchez is throwing you the ball and you can catch 10 for 150. Yeah, that's your ceiling.
I mean, if Jordan Reed was on any other team, I don't know if he would have the stats just because Kirk Cousins throws to him all the time.
Jordan Reed wasn't in the ER. He might be an NFL player.
All I'm saying is that Zach Ertz is also, by the way, they still have Brent Selleck. There's just a ton of targets. And the biggest thing this week, I think that will happen is that the Eagles are going to Dallas. The Eagles have a guy who used to play for Dallas, and this could be a old team game where DeMarco Murray, they give him a good amount of touches. Ryan Matthews is dealing with a small injury. It looks like he's going to play, but I don't think it's going to be the week where they start to give him 12, 15 carries or anything like that. It's still going to be the DeMarco Murray show.
No, but Dallas is better against the run than they are against the pass, and Dallas is very vulnerable in that first level of the second defense down the seam, and that is Zach Ertz territory.
I don't dislike Zach Ertz as a football player or as a player for the Eagles, but in daily fantasy, I just feel like we could do better.
You said the same thing to me about Eli last week.
I just, I don't ever want to be a homer, and you'll never hear me just trumpet some bucks on this show, just because, I will never do that. So, Austin Seferian-Jenkins now.
It was actually, if he plays, a very good play this week.
Yeah,
ironically enough. I just don't know if he's going to play.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. But no, not my pick, unfortunately. I wish I could. My pick is a maybe seemingly obvious pick to some, based especially off his week last week. Heath Miller. Here's the real reason I played him. 2,700 in DraftKings, 5,800 in FanDuel. The 5,800 in FanDuel is actually pretty high. He's actually more than Jordan Reed, who I'm not going to mention as such, but is been a very quality player. But the 2,700 in DraftKings is a pretty ridiculous price. Playing Oakland, who, if you've been following daily sports or fantasy sports at all, Oakland's terrible against the tight end. They're 31st against the tight end, and that's only because of Owen Daniels' 0 catch game that he had against Oakland. Everybody else has tore them up. Last week there was a touchdown scored on them by a backup tight end. The name escapes me off the top of my head. It's like the backup.
What team?
The back for the who can play the Jets.
Oh.
Kellen Davis. Kellen Davis scored a touchdown.
Wow.
He's like a second or third team type. Second or third type. Yeah, exactly. Heath Miller last week in Ben's return from his injury had 13 targets with 10 catches. Now, of course, yeah, a lot of those are really short catches, but that's what Heath Miller's made a career out of. And he'll be mentioned in Hall of Fame talks at some point. He's won a few rings and has been productive over his career. Ben does love him. And with the run game in flux right now, with the Le'Veon Bell injury, D'Angelo Williams can make receptions out of the backfield. It's not necessarily his strong point. He can do that. But I still think, as we saw last week, we're going to see a lot of Heath Miller. And Ben's probably still recovering. I don't think we're going to get a lot of running out of the pocket with Ben still. They're going to try to go for a wild card. I think at this point, obviously, the Bengals have run away with the division. But they still want to save Ben a little bit. They have no other quarterback options. So I see a lot of the same things that almost worked for them last week. A lot of short passes to Heath Miller, probably some shotgun or pistol type plays, and I think Heath Miller for 2,700 after the week he just had is just a bargain bin surprise for all of us in fantasy.
First of all, Landry Jones is a hell of a backup quarterback. Second of all, I appreciate how all you do to find your picks for the current week is go back and find my picks that worked from the previous week and just try to recycle them, because as we all know that Heath Miller was the pick of the week for me last week because of the Big Ben injury, and Big Ben's not injured. He had that 1 week, and that's when Heath Miller was a strong play. Heath Miller is a boom or bust, touchdown dependent tight end. He's never
He had 10 catches last week.
Exactly, but I called that last week because
Touchdown dependent's like when I picked 10 right.
No, but that was the anomaly game, because they didn't want any pass rush to get anywhere near to Ben's needs. So that was the reason that Heath Miller was the strong play this week. Heath Miller's not a strong play week to week for the Pittsburgh offense, because you know why? Because they have Antonio Brown. Why? Because they have Martavis Bryant. It's not, and they have a capable backup running back in D'Angelo Williams. No, Heath Miller is he is a poor man's Jason Witten, and I'll take Jason Witten 8 days a week over.
You'll take Jason Witten for 2,000 more than Heath Miller.
because Jason Witten has a 60% chance of catching a higher percent chance of catching a touchdown than Heath Miller does.
Heath Miller's no flash in the pan. He's been around the league and he's performed.
I agree. Heath Miller's a great player, but he is not an offensive tight end. He is a team player. He's not Antonio Gates. He's not the receiving
Nobody's saying
tight
he's
end.
Antonio Gates.
Well, if you're
All
calling
I'm
for him on the sites, then that's exactly what you're saying.
He had 13 targets. I mean,
But that's you're chasing last week's stats. It's like,
so he's gonna have 3 targets this week.
yeah,
3
absolutely,
targets.
absolutely. Is that not possible?
I mean,
Is that outside the realm of possibility?
Anything is possible.
But
Anything is possible.
has he had more games? I don't have those stats, but we should check that. Has he had more games where he's had 3 targets, or more games where he's had 13 targets in his career?
The boomer in his career.
Yeah.
In his career, he's had a consistent career. Lately, he's only had 2 games this year where he's had great games. Now, albeit, that's with Ben out too, so that is something. And he's dealt with his own injuries, but now they're both back. They're both in. We saw what happens. There is a trust factor here, and yeah, nobody's gonna say anything against Antonio Brown. Antonio Brown's still gonna get his targets. Martavis Bryant is gonna get his targets mainly in the red zone. But Heath Miller performed, has always performed, and just a cheap price. I mean, if you're going to want to swing low on a tight end like most people do, then why wouldn't you play Heath Miller?
Because there's a better tight end to swing low on, and that's called a segue, and that is Garrett Selleck. Who? Yes, the younger brother of Brent Selleck of the Philadelphia Eagles, now the starting tight end for the San Francisco terrible 49ers. Yes, that is the Blaine Gabbert-led 49ers. That's all I have to say. Blaine Gabbert's quarterback. Yes, new starting quarterback. Michigan State again. Michigan State is the official college of bird coverage apparently this week. So Michigan State tight end Garrett Selleck, no one's heard of, so little stat. 6'4", 250, ran 4.7 40 at the combine. He's averaged 5 targets a game in games in which Vernon Davis has played. And Atlanta has given up the 5th most fantasy points to tight ends this season. So yes, we don't have a lot to go on with Garrett Selleck because he's been VD's backup. But VD's in Denver. There's a VD in Denver. There's none in San Fran. So now we have Garrett Selleck. Blaine Gabbert is a terrible quarterback. But he is now a starting quarterback on a terrible offense. They don't have a running back. They just signed Pierre Thomas. Pierre Thomas will be their starting running back this week. Pierre Thomas is a pass-catching running back, yes. But who are rookie quarterbacks and terrible quarterbacks' best friends? That is their starting tight end. Garrett Selleck has proven to do it in limited role before. He's going to do it this week, and he is the cheapest tight end on both sites. That is $4,500 on the dual and $2,500 on DraftKings. He is going to pay his price this week, and he is the receiving target on a terrible offense.
So, Joel,
Curtis.
you're telling me that after you just raved about Blaine Gabbert, and we can probably assume
I raved about Blaine Gabbert? I just bashed Blaine Gabbert.
That was sarcasm.
Oh, okay.
Um,
I didn't gather.
yes.
Yes. Sort of shocked.
So, would you say that Ben Roethlisberger or Blaine Gabbert was a better NFL quarterback?
Where are they playing?
Yeah, I think. So, Ben. And a guy who I don't think has ever had 13 targets, like Heath Miller, you're going to say play Garrett Selleck for $2,500 over Heath Miller's $2,700?
Yep.
After the week and rapport that Ben and
You know
Heath Miller
why?
have?
Because who else? First of all, Blaine Gabbert has a tendency to throw the ball backwards, but when he does throw the ball forwards, who is he going to throw it to?
Vance McDonald.
No, not at all. Garrett Selleck is the starting tight end.
Vance McDonald also gets receptions out of the tight end
I'm
spot.
telling you, no. That was more when Vernon Davis was on the team. Vance McDonald was the handcuff. Yes, but Garrett Selleck has been named the starter on an offense that has no other weapons.
This to
and
me
you're calling for a tight end on a team that has 3 or 4 weapons, so he's 5th in pecking
Well, first of
order
all,
on
is Garrett
the offense.
Selleck a weapon? I mean, now he's a weapon?
He
Come on, he's never been a weapon,
No, but
and now he's a weapon.
he is on this team, absolutely.
Now this
Absolutely.
I'd rather play somebody like Jared Cook on a
No.
shitty passing offense.
No, Jared Cook blocks all the time.
Yeah, and what do you think Garrett Selleck's going to be doing? The Atlanta's going to be. You yourself said Atlanta is a great defensive play this week.
Yes, and that is why the opposing tight end is a good play, because the quarterback is terrible, and you agree with me on this point.
I'd rather play Brent Selleck than Garrett Selleck at this point. I mean,
Side bet, double or nothing, that Garrett Selleck has more receiving yards than Brent Selleck this week?
I gotta do a little research on that.
Yeah. You might want to do that before we film.
Let's say this. I get your point. And I looked
Do you?
into this when I saw Vernon Davis traded. I'm like, well, Garrett Selleck, but then I saw the Vance McDonald thing. I'm like, well, it seems like there's a little something there. And it's like, if they score one touchdown, if the 49ers score one touchdown, I think they're lucky. And if I'm going to also say that one touchdown is scored by one specific person, I don't care who it is, I mean, that's a lot to put on the line.
Well, I'm saying that we're both proponents of garbage time. I'm not saying this is going to happen in the first 3 minutes of the game.
What's the ceiling?
But
5 for 30 and a touchdown?
But I'm saying, no, he's already hit 30 yards, and he hasn't been the starting tight end at all this year. He's hit 30 yards in a game receiving.
So he has hit 30 yards, folks.
As the number,
get ready to light the world on fire.
As the number 3 wide receiver on the team. Yes, and now he's the number 1. But yes, San Fran's going to be down the entire game. So you have your whole Jacksonville argument the entire season has been garbage time stats still count. Garbage time stats still count on the West Coast as well. Garrett Selleck.
I don't want to put any money on any Blaine Gabbert run offense. I mean, call me old-fashioned, but
all right, I'll make the side bet even more interesting. I'll say Garrett Selleck has more fantasy points than Heath Miller.
Oh yeah, I'll take that. I'll take that.
Done.
I'll bet $5, so you can win this $5 from me. So I'll just put it over here. Keep it safe, just in case.
Done.
All right, good.
Done.
Excellent. All right, now moving on to established, good, if not great, tight ends. I'm picking Greg Olsen this week. I know it's not the inspired Blaine Gabbert led offensive play that my counterpart on the couch has, but Greg Olsen, as you might have heard of, is pretty good. And surprisingly a low price. It's not going to look low when you go to tight ends and you see, oh, Greg Olsen's $6,500 in DraftKings and $6,400 in FanDuel, which, as we've mentioned before, if ever a price is lower in FanDuel, that's a good value play. Greg Olsen is the number one option on the Panthers, and the Panthers, as you know, are undefeated. Greg Olsen has 15 yards, or almost, it's 15.7 yards per catch this year. So he is performing in a big way with his receptions. He only has 4 touchdowns, but every week he is a possibility to be that red zone threat. He surprisingly, I didn't know this until I started doing a little research. He has 10 catches for over 20 yards this year, which is phenomenal for a tight end. And if you think about number one options in the offense on teams like the Julio Joneses of the world, the Antonio Browns, they're all 9,000 ODBs, whatever. But you have Greg Olsen. He's top 25 in reception yards. He's been putting up. He is the number one going against Green Bay, who we have to hope Aaron Rodgers isn't going to have another 70-yard passing game. It's probably going to be some points scored in this game. But for Carolina, it is in Carolina. It's not in Lambeau. I think Green Bay is still going to put up some points, and the Panthers have a very rigid way of playing their offense. They don't really change. It's based on the run. There's a lot of fakes and draws. Cam still gets his touches. Jonathan Stewart's been getting close to 20, if not over 20 every week. And then the passing game has been long to Ted Ginn, a few very short to Philly Brown, and then a lot right up the middle to Greg Olsen. And Greg Olsen's made some spectacular catches. I don't know if you saw last week, he had a great one-handed grab for a first down to really just put the nail in the coffin. Greg Olsen, for his cheap price as a number one option, I think, is a very safe play.
Greg Olsen's not cheap. He's the second or third highest wide tight end on both sides, so it's not cheap. Like, he's not Gronk prices, but that's why it's called a Gronk price, because there's only one Gronk.
But he's getting 74 yards a game. He's busting big catches, and they haven't needed to throw. And now they're probably in a position against Green Bay where they're going to have to throw a little more.
They're playing Green Bay. Green Bay just got humiliated last week by the Denver Broncos. Do you think Green Bay is going to get humiliated 2 weeks in a row?
I don't.
No. The entire Green Bay team is angry, and they're going to take it out on a helpless Carolina Panthers. Carolina Panthers.
Helpless? They're undefeated.
Yes, but by... Who have they really played? They haven't played any.
Oh my God!
If you want to go college, they've not gone strength. They have no strength of schedule. The Green Bay Packers are going to take out all their frustration on Carolina, and after this week, Carolina gets humiliated, and everyone after this week will actually start to talk about how if a 7-1 team is actually a Super Bowl contender, because they will look that bad. I want no parts of any Carolina player this week.
Oh, if I'm going to have any part of anybody, I want Greg Olsen. You've got to expect they're going to be throwing the ball. And if you think that
you would expect they'll be throwing the ball, but whether they complete those balls, that's a completely different story. You
think his targets are going to go down?
I think if Carolina scores double-digit points, I'll be shocked.
Wow. So
Green Bay in a blowout.
So side bet, I'll say that I take the Carolina Panthers scoring more points than your San Francisco 49ers.
Oh, the offenses?
Yeah.
That's not a fair bet. That's not a fair bet.
Here's the deal. Here's the real deal that Joel won't tell you, and I will because I love you. The Green Bay Packers are much better at home. However,
Yes.
Todd Gurley almost beat them single-handedly, bringing the Rams back from the
Todd
deep.
Gurley's the best wide receiver in the NFL.
Running back.
Running back in the NFL.
And I won't argue against that. And the San Diego Chargers, who are not a good team, almost beat Green Bay at home. Now Green Bay's on the road against a 7-0 team. I can't remember the last time they went on the road to face an undefeated team. Oh yeah, last week, and they got blown out. So I don't think this is going to be some kind of Green Bay blowout. And hell, if it is, Greg Olson's going to be in line for a bunch more targets and probably receptions than he usually is. So I think Greg Olson's a great
I'll take a
player.
bet that the Cleveland Browns score more points this week than the Carolina Panthers.
Well, that doesn't have anything. The Browns don't have anything to do with this.
But no, because we're both on record as saying that the Cincinnati Bengals defense is strong play because Johnny Manziel led offense.
First of all, we don't bet. You know, this is a game of skill. It's not gambling,
We
Joel.
bet last week.
I don't know.
I said it was for fantasy points. You said no, $20.
I still gotta look at the
20 fantasy
transcriptions
points.
for this. We got another tight end or what?
No, that's it.
The segment's running long. Good. I'm so happy with this segment.
I am.
This has been Bird Coverage, Week 9 tight ends. I'm Curtis.
On tight ends. I'm Joel.
Oh, I didn't make a tight end joke?
You just did.
See you next time.
On the couch with more tight ends.
If you have tight ends, please send them to Curtis Burdine.